Hello, thank you for taking the time to attend this presentation on AI, anecdotes, experiences, and hallucinations. Before I actually start the presentation, I'd like my assistant here to tell you something about it.
Don't miss Dr. Kasser's talk on AI, anecdotes, experiences, and hallucinations. Coming up on 19th September at 10:45 a.m. London time in the British Computer Society SQM 2025 International Quality Conference, Quality SG. Even better, why not attend for the day? Registration is free. Click on the URL below for details.
Did you notice she didn't tell you anything about the presentation? That was AI speaking to you. She did exactly what I asked her to do, no more and no less. And I'll tell you later a little bit about how you can do the same. When I'm telling you about my experiences in this talk, I'll also show you how you can do it and achieve the same or similar results. So I'm going to talk a little bit about search engines, writing books and papers, using AI in the classroom and for systems engineering tools, generating images and graphics, writing software, doing a little marketing, self-reflection, creating podcasts and presentations, ethics, scams in AI, and some of the lessons I've learned. Since 1998, I've been using a simple search engine, dogpile.com. It's a meta search engine. So when I do a search like this, what is the price of a used rock and roll LP album from 1968 by Bill Haley and the Comets? It goes out and searches Google and all the other search engines and puts together a report like this. While in the modern era, I can use AI to do the same thing. So I asked the AI the question. Same question you can see here. And by the way, whenever I ask an AI a question, that will be in italics and the AI's response will be in regular font. So what I got back was a load of detail. Current listings and prices, music by region and pressing, and a summary. And the summary was the common range for the 1968 Hallmark edition in the UK used was between $10 and $22 depending on condition and seller. Notice it's in the UK and it's giving me back US dollars. And then it goes foreign pressings like Sweden or Australia may go up higher, up to $25 or more. Okay, pretty good. Saved me a lot of time. Previously I would have gone to eBay or something like that and looked for it. Now I'm using a smart search engine. Please compare solar batteries available in South Australia, capacity cost, and provide selection criteria to allow me to select the best one for my needs. I got back a load of information, paragraphs and paragraphs, and at the end it wrote, would you like me to tabulate it so you can compare them side by side? And I go, sure, that's what I want. So I got a table like this, and I'm only showing you two of the rows. And notice that it actually tells me the website and gives me something to click on so I can go check that information. And then it takes the initiative. It goes, if you like, tell me your average daily kilowatt hour and whether you have three-phase, whether whole home versus essential backup matters, and if you're keen to join a virtual power provider. I'll plug those into the selection method above and give you a tailored shortlist and target quotes for Adelaide. Hey, that's good, I thought. Yeah, I'll do that. And so it gave me the information. And then I go, wait a minute. What about SigGen batteries? Because I got a good deal on them. And I get back. Here's a quick visual tour of SigGen. You'll see their sleek modular battery units, integrated controllers, inverted and larger multi-mode setups. Where did that sleek modular come in? Well, obviously it came in from the website. So here's one of the things you need to know about AI. It believes what it reads. It doesn't have any way of evaluating it. If you want it evaluated, you'll have to do it interactively, and I'll share a little bit about that later. And then the information it gave me covered what is SigGen, the key features and the specs, and how it stacks up against other batteries in SA, South Australia, and who should consider SigGen's store. So now we go around the loop. I tell it, add it to the initial comparison. So it says, okay, let's fold into the original comparison alongside the others so you have a single reference. Now, one of the things AI does is it does active listening. It will repeat what you told it to do in its own words and then go ahead and do it. It also comes in and say, do you want me to upgrade the selection criteria to show where it's a stronger, weaker fit, and so on? And I go, isn't that what I asked you to do in the first place? So here's an example of what I thought I asked the AI to do was not what the AI understood to do it, or the AI hasn't completed what I asked it to do and is now asking for more instructions. I'm not sure which at the moment. Another use, research. My wife had a traffic accident. Somebody ran into her at an intersection, and you can see what her car looked like after she'd driven it home. So I asked the AI to research similar cases in South Australia looking for precedents. Why did I do that? Well, a month or so later, she got a speeding ticket claiming that she ran the red light. And she adamantly said, no, she didn't. And the AI research produced some interesting results. Here's the other car. I found an Australian legal case history website, but I could not find any of the AI-supplied cases on the website. So I asked the AI for an explanation, and it admitted creating representative cases. This is what we call hallucinations. Now let's look at writing textbooks, conference and journal papers. So before AI, I would create the first draft manually. I'd create a PowerPoint presentation and I'd play with the presentation and adjust everything until I got the flow. That way I wouldn't spend a lot of time writing sections and then throwing them out later when I changed my mind. I then copied each PowerPoint slide into Word manually. And this creates an outline for the paper, and then I'd fill in the outline. I'd do that by inserting the spoken text between the bullets or the dot line. I'd do that by writing down what I would say as I went through the PowerPoint presentation. I would remove duplicate material, add new material, and insert references. I used this process for creating conference papers, but when I wanted to write a book based on my Writing Good Requirements course, I did something slightly different. I gave the AI each module, that's the PowerPoint file, and asked it to write a book chapter based on the PowerPoint slides. The result, about 50 to 75% of usable material. It inserted new content that wasn't in the slides, and there's some insight from later slides added to the earlier slides. But it needs the spoken comments, which it didn't have, and the stories I told added. So it's much better than starting with a blank page. So here's an example of what it gave me. AI Module 1 said, the traditional context. In the traditional view, requirements emerge from a linear process. A stakeholder experiences a want. This want is articulated as a requirement. The requirement is used to create something that remedies the want. The resulting product or process is used in a change situation. However, this linear view oversimplifies the complexity of real-world requirements engineering. A more nuanced understanding, recognizing that wants and needs are different and that errors can propagate through each stage of the process. And by the way, I highlighted the word nuance because Claude loves that word. I see it all the time when I ask it to create some text. And here's the second slide it produced, the systems view. A systems perspective reveals a more complex reality. Stakeholders experience a want. Analysis reveals the underlying need. The need is converted to a requirement. The requirement guides the creation of a solution. The system view highlights 3 critical error propagation points. Want to need introduces errors. Need to requirement introduces errors. Requirement to solution introduces errors. And then it gave me this quote from Deming. Somebody gets paid to make defects. Understanding these error propagation points is essential for preventing costly mistakes. Actually, it didn't give me the entire quote. The entire quote is somebody gets paid to make defects and then gets paid to fix them. But that's good enough. But you know something about these 2 slides? None of the material in those slides was in the original PowerPoint file. It got it from somewhere. Should those slides have been in the original PowerPoint file? Because the material is discussed in later modules. But this might be a good place to introduce the concepts. And it would be missed without the insight from the AI. Now let's look at writing conference and journal papers. It's a great research assistant. I asked it questions like, I remember a quote by somebody, please find it for me. Please find citation that mentioned parts and the interaction between the parts from ancient times to 1950 in the literature. I'm writing a paper and I need somebody to do some research to find some citations that support my hypothesis. And then I've learned, are the citations real? And I also ask the AI to find citations that argue against my hypothesis, because the AI keeps telling me that this is a great paper. And then I'm thinking about something, but I'm not sure how those thoughts come together, or I'm having trouble actually verbalizing, conceptualizing something. So I write, please write a paragraph that contains thought 1, thought 2, and thought 3. And then I think about what the AI wrote, and it helps me bring my thoughts out. It's a much faster process than letting time pass, and it's iterative. The AI and I iterate for a while, discussing aspects of what the AI has produced. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I say, please find arguments against whatever it is. And notice I use please and thank you. I use that a lot. It's one of the most useful tools that anybody can use, to say please and to say thank you when you're dealing with people or AI. And then, worrying about plagiarism, I used the Grammarly plagiarism checker on the finished paper, and it gave me a very low plagiarism score. I asked it to peer review a manuscript. Claude AI gave a detailed negative review. I skimmed the text of the report and got depressed, and that was it for the rest of the day. But the next morning, I read the text carefully, and I realized that where Claude stated something was missing, I found it in the text. So I asked Claude about it, and I received an apology. Claude is really good at apologizing. And then Claude stated it was reasonable. So I found a few more things that were missing, and I asked Claude about it, and I received an apology, and Claude stated it was reasonable. And I went through this review, and I got a lot more cheerful because Claude had missed an awful lot was in the paper. And I gave the original paper to ChatGPT and it stated it was reasonable. Okay. I felt a lot happier about it, but I realized it wasn't reasonable because this dialogue that I'd gone through, and that helped me rewrite the paper. And then both AI suggested changes to broaden the work and add months of research and editing. And I basically said, I've been working on this paper for 3 months now, I want to get it out. So I ignored their suggested changes. So I talked about hallucinations. Well, as part of this research, Claude created imaginary citations. Remember, I told you in the legal search that he created representative citations. In one of the citations he gave me, it was my work. The date was correct, but the title was imaginary. So I asked Claude, is this citation real? And I got back the same response. It's representative for general information. So I have learned now that anytime Claude gives me some citations, or any AI give me some citations, I ask, is the citation real? I asked Claude to review the INCOSE handbook. INCOSE is the International Council on Systems Engineering. And it comes back and tells me this is the standard reference, it defines systems engineering. I go, okay. I'm not quite sure about that, but I asked Claude why, and it came back basically and said, well, the book says so. So I said, okay, how about comparing it with Hall's A Methodology for Systems Engineering, written back in 1962, and a few other systems engineering texts, which I provided, written before 1970. So the result, after a few iterations, when I asked Claude to clarify or adjust something it had said, was a conference paper manuscript, From Analysis to Administration, a Paradigm Shift in Systems Engineering, describing 2 systems engineering paradigms, the transition between them, and the consequences thereof, which was submitted to the Australia-Oceania Systems Engineering Conference in Singapore. Now, I had previously realized that there were 2 systems engineering paradigms, but I hadn't realized that there was a transition going on. So I got new insight here from Claude. And an AI-produced podcast using NotebookLM, Systems Engineering, a Paradigm Shift Analysis, that I published on the 1st of August. You can find that on my YouTube channel, and there's the logo to look for. And that logo was produced by ChatGPT. Moving on to AI in the classroom. A useful thing is convert a document to a PowerPoint file. So ChatGPT, I've converted your document to a PowerPoint presentation. You can download it here. Thank you. It replied, you're very welcome. Glad I could help. Do you want me to also polish the slides a bit? Formatting bullet points so it's presentation ready? Yes, please. Great idea. Here's the polished version of your presentation with improved formatting, clearer titles, and consistent text styling. And then it says, would you like me to also add some icons or diagrams? I go, hey, this is a good idea. But before I could say anything like that, I got, you've reached your data analysis limit. Upgrade to ChatGPT Plus or try again tomorrow after 9:49 a.m. Okay. I looked at the 3 files it gave me and I didn't see any difference between them. Actually, I did see it. In the second one, I got it formatted in a style. But otherwise, everything was the same. And it didn't size the text to fit the slide. I had to go through manually and reduce the size of the text. But it did give me some useful information. I asked it to write an outline for a workshop. I said, write an outline for a workshop. The title is Systems Thinking Approach for Managing Complex Systems. I was asked to do this workshop in Zurich earlier this year. It was online and it was 2 hours. The content would be description of the workshop, what you'll learn, bullet points, and who will benefit from attending this workshop, bullet points. So what did it give me? Workshop outline. Workshop description. This workshop introduces participants to the principles of systems thinking and its application in managing complex systems. Through interactive discussions, case study, and practical exercises, attendees will learn how to analyze interconnected systems, identify feedback loops, and develop strategies for addressing complexity in various domains. This is the kind of thing you see in all workshop descriptions. And then it says what you will learn: understanding the fundamentals of systems thinking, identifying and analyzing complex systems and their components, recognizing feedback loops and their impact on system behavior, applying systems mapping techniques to visualize complexity, developing strategies for managing uncertainty and unintended consequences, exploring real-world case studies in business, environment, healthcare, and governance. Okay, who will benefit from attending this workshop? Business leaders and managers handling organization complexity, policymakers and government officials dealing with systemic challenges, engineers and project managers overseeing large-scale systems, environmental and sustainability professionals tackling interconnected issues, healthcare administrators managing multi-layered healthcare systems, educators and researchers interested in interdisciplinary problem solving. Would you like me to add specific case studies or interactive activities to enhance engagement? And I think to myself, all this in a 2-hour workshop? Some editing required. Student experiences. I tell the students, use AI to assist you with the exercises. There are 2 kinds of exercises in my class. Practicals, that's the application of knowledge, and what I call knowledge readings, where they actually teach the knowledge. They're required to read the document and teach it. Remember that instruction about creating a PowerPoint presentation from the document? But I tell them they have to admit they're using AI. So their experiences: verbose knowledge in presentations. AIs like to talk, especially Claude. Generic knowledge rather than exercise-specific knowledge. It's like students. Instead of in the exercise that asks them to apply the knowledge, instead of applying the knowledge, they tell me the knowledge, which wastes time. Their time writing it, my time reading it, and they don't get graded on that because it's not the answer to the question. And the language is recognizable as AI generated. Just the style of the writing and the words. And we learned that AI writes very poor requirements. I'm not surprised because most of the examples it gets to read are also very poor. Which leads me to AI in systems engineering tools. 20 years ago, I wrote a tool, the first requirement solicitator demonstration. It's the first use of AI in a systems engineering tool. It used an expert system. I wrote it because I needed an educational tool to make the requirements class more effective. And the out-of-the-box idea came from the spelling checker in Word. If Word can find words that are poorly spelled, why can't a spelling checker find poor words in requirements? And it searches the text file for poor words and multiple requirements in a single requirement statement. Some of these poor words are user-friendly, adequate, easy, large, best practice, many, including, and, or, and etc. And it finds 5 types of defects: multiple requirements in a line, possible multiple requirements, not verifiable, use of the wrong word, and a user-defined poor word, because the users can add poor words. I talked to tool vendors at the time, one who came over and visited the lab and I demonstrated it, and the other one who was through a telephone call, and I talked him through the process and he actually implemented it in his tool, but neither of those tool vendors actually implemented the function in their tools. And it learns new words by allowing, and the tool uses new poor words by allowing the user to add them to the poor word file. So it doesn't learn by itself. It has to be taught everything it knows by a human. That evolved into Tiger, a tool to ingest and elucidate requirements. And you can download that and play with it. It has additional attributes of requirements, for example, acceptance criteria. When I first introduced acceptance criteria into my class, after a while the students started complaining. I hadn't taught them how to write good acceptance criteria. They understood the benefits very well. Priority as an attribute, risk, cost estimates. And you can see an example on the screen of a report that says the document has 246 records. It's found 246 requirements and the number of errors are pretty high. And it gives you a graphical display of the defect types. So there's a lot of type 2 defects and type 3 defects. And it allows informed decisions because you can take a look at cost versus priority. If you've got a high cost to implement requirement and a low priority requirement, you need to ask yourself, why is it there? Similarly, if it's a risky requirement and it's low priority, why is it there in the first place? And it allows profiles, something that I haven't seen in any tool yet. Let me show you what I mean when I say I can show a risk profile and a priority profile. Here's a priority profile. 10 is the highest, so you can see all the requirements were given priorities. And most of them are low priority requirements. And so my question is, why is anybody building this software? It doesn't look like it's really needed. There's only a few high priority requirements compared to the rest. Well, what about risk? You've all seen the traditional risk matrix. Well, here's a risk profile. Separates out probability, and you can see that this system has a large number of risk probabilities in 7. This one has a large number of severity 4s approaching. So it gives you an idea of the riskiness of the system before it's even built. And what's more, it can also be used that if 2 different designs or 2 different companies are bidding on providing a product, a system, a software package, or whatever it is, ask them to provide the risk profiles. And then risk can become one of the evaluation criteria when you are comparing between the 2 offers, tenders, whatever you want to call them. Images and graphics. I used the older version of ChatGPT to create logos for the podcasts, and notice the spelling errors. I missed a few of them initially, and they're actually in the system up on the website. And I found the error in this one, and I asked it to repeat, and I got another one with another error. And eventually I learned that ask the AI to create the logo and add the text myself. But then the AI was upgraded and the logos are now coming out with good spelling. I need an image for a survey. So I asked Gemini to create an image for Bo Peep and her AI-enhanced Australian sheep's Bonza price giveaway. And I got one like this. Not bad. And I got one like this as well because it gave me a choice. And so I used both of them in different places. One to advertise the survey and one inside the survey webpage. Writing software, that's fun. I needed a program in Delphi that accessed a website, periodically downloads a list of spots in JSON format and displays the results in a grid color-coded. I'd never seen JSON data before, so I looked for a specification and I found the interface specification on the website. And I started reading the specification and I scratched my head. Couldn't understand what it was saying. So I had a choice. I could read the spec and write the code, and that would take a really long time. Or I could ask the AI to read the spec and write the code. So I did. It sort of worked. I learned the JSON format very quickly just by looking at the code and seeing what it did. And Claude forgot to declare variables. Sometimes it forgot to implement the functions and implement the procedures. So iterations were needed. I went through the iterations and I got something that worked. It did the job. Okay, then I decided, hey, there's another website, a similar one, providing similar information. I'd like them to be combined. So I added a different website source. I got a completely different code arrangement with the same forgetfulness. Added a third website, because there's another website that did the same thing. And again, a completely different code arrangement with the same forgetfulness. And this third one I could not get to work. So there was a manual combination of the first and second modules. I took bits of the code from the first and the second modules, put them together, and I got something that was a lot simpler and easier to deal with, because Claude writes very convoluted code. And then I wanted to add highlighting of new information and audio, text-to-speech. Claude is very good at apologizing for errors, and I kept asking it, wouldn't it be simpler too, while we were going around the iterations? And I kept getting lots of, you're absolutely right, it will be simpler to do this. And I think, so why didn't you do it this way in the first place? And then Claude wrote lots of good debugging messages without being asked to. It volunteered it, and I put it in, and then I see these debugging messages scrolling down the screen. So here's an example in the code. If the flag is set, show the debugging message, and you're formatting the string, show the information. And after a while, there was so many of these debugging messages in there that I couldn't find them in the code. So I added an identifier, API 001, and incremented it for each use. And you can see the modified message just above there. And then I was able to find the code and help Claude identify the errors. I then thought I would write some software for tracking satellite orbits. So I asked the AI to write a program that would track Oscar satellites, load the orbital elements from a file, show satellite parameters in a window, and display states in different colors. Result was a load of rubbish. Functionality I hadn't asked for, missing variables, declarations, user references, functions and procedures, and after some iterations I couldn't even get it to compile. So I put it aside. Some months later I came back to this and asked for a simpler version. And again, iterations were needed. It compiled. It demonstrated functionality. It actually worked. Well, did I say it worked? It did something, but the output didn't match the output from Orbitron. So Claude and I went through some iterations, and each time he gave me a new version of the code, I tried it, it didn't match the output from Orbitron, and then Claude identified a different bug and fixed it. This is what it looks like. The colors indicating approaching or about to go out of range or in range. And you can see one color there in red. And after a number of iterations, Claude still can't format the times and the angles correctly. And as to the accuracy predictions, they're still different. So when I told Claude I was using Orbitron as a reference, Claude tells me, the fundamental problem is that your code uses simplified Kepler orbital mechanics, while Orbitron uses the full SGP4 model. And then he continues, this creates significant differences in orbital position calculation. SGP4 accounts for atmospheric drag, Earth oblateness, and other perturbations. You would need to implement the full SGP4 model instead of simplified Kepler mechanics. For production use, consider using an existing SGP4 library rather than implementing it from scratch. The simplified version will always have significant errors compared to Orbitron. However, try this later version. The coordinate transformation should at least be more accurate now. The remaining differences will be due to the orbital mechanics model. I think Claude puts process before product. Because, so what is the use of that software if it doesn't give me an accurate prediction of the satellite location? Creating a software manual. Very useful idea. So I say, can you create an outline in HTML3 help from a Delphi form that has an entry for each menu selection? ChatGPT can handle typos in the instructions. I get, yes, I can help you generate HM3 help file outline automatically from a Delphi form by scanning its menus and creating a topic entry for each menu item. It recognized the format of the file and knew what program I was running it with. That's useful. And here's the general workflow. And I get the general workflow, Not really interested in it, but that's what it gave me. So then it says, do you want me to A, give you a Delphi code that directly generates the code, or B, just a script tool that converts your exported text outline to an HM3 XML file? And I thought to myself, didn't I just ask you if you could do it? Why are you giving me this option? And then it continues. Option A integrates directly into your Delphi app. Option B is easier if you just want a quick standalone conversion. Option B, step 1, export your menu file to the text file, convert the outline to HTML. And here's a Python script that reads that text outline and writes an HM3 style XML table of contents. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I want it to do the job. I don't want to do that job. And I get a script there. And then it continues. If you want, I can adapt the script to auto-generate unique topic IDs so you don't risk duplicates. And would you like me to add that uniqueness feature? So I come back and say, can't you create the file directly? And it goes, yes, we can generate a project file directly instead of just a table of contents snippet. And then it continues. Help and manual projects are stored in a single HTML-based file. The file includes project settings and the table of topics, table of contents with all topics and so on, and placeholders for context. And I'm about to say, why don't you go ahead and do it, when I get a message that says you've hit the free plan limit for GPT-5. Responses will use another model until your limit resets after 5:45 p.m. So I continued. If I upload a form, you can create a file from it, right? Yes, exactly. If you upload your Delphi form file or a Pascal unit file, I can pass the menu, generate a complete file, table of content, placeholder topics, deliver a ready-to-open file, and it will preserve the menu hierarchy, and you can then actually do the next step and so on. Replace the placeholder text with code comments or documentation from your Pascal units. So if you upload your form, I can generate the file for you. Do you want to go ahead and upload it now? And before I can answer there, I got this conversation has reached its maximal length. And since it may or may not remember what was in this conversation, I'd have to go down through this link. My mistake at the end of this dialog was in step 18. I should have uploaded the form right there and told it to do it. Marketing. AI is very useful in marketing. A few years ago, I bought a program from HumanPal.io, and it creates short marketing videos, choice of background styles, avatars or speakers, voices, and it also generates unique copyright-free photos of humans who don't exist. And you saw an example of that right at the beginning of this presentation. Well, this is the one I created a few years ago.
Give me someone who can't apply systems thinking to solving problems. And within 3 months that person will be tackling complex problems with ease. What most courses and books teach you is based on the observation of best practices. As a result, there are many things you are not taught. What I teach is based on workflow analysis. And consequently, I fill many of the knowledge gaps. And by using the EverCourse format, I bring experience into the program as well as the theoretical knowledge. Read the web page, and then talk to me if you are serious about stepping up to become outstanding.
Not bad. It took a few iterations to get this. Self-reflection. I asked it to access Tom Gilb's work and report on their content. It gave me a paper, pretty much. So I said, please find additional material and write a paper including citations from and about his work with references. And I got a really interesting paper, and it also asked me, would it like me to create a PowerPoint presentation? And I go, yeah, let's do a PowerPoint presentation. So I get the PowerPoint presentation and I find a nice table in it, and I show it here. It shows you how Tom has been well ahead of its time, because it says the concept in the 1970s and the 1980s, evolutionary development and so on, modern equivalent, and the description. Really nice. Don't ask me for copies of that paper and the PowerPoint file. You can access the AI yourself and ask for it. But that wasn't the first time I tried this. The first question I asked the AI a few days earlier was, if you're given a web URL, can you read the PDF files on the page and report on their content? And it came back and told me, yes, give me the website. So I said, look in the conference papers section in my website, and notice it understood my spelling error. I'm a little dyslexic on the keyboard, and I have to constantly correct this type of letter substitution error. And then it says, now I'll create a comprehensive research paper based on my analysis of multiple conference papers from Joseph Cass's collection. This comprehensive analysis examines Cass's conference papers to identify key theoretical contributions, methodological innovations, and practical applications. The research reveals consistent themes that have shaped modern systems engineering understanding, particularly in the areas of problem-solving paradigms, holistic thinking approaches, and complexity management strategies. And I think, wow, that's really good, considering nobody reads my papers. I used to write conference papers that nobody read. Now I write journal articles that nobody reads and create YouTube videos that nobody reads. And then I gave Claude a question. Can you determine the writing style of a person by analyzing the papers on their web page? And the response was, give me the URL. Okay, write a guide for an AI to take a manuscript and change it to my style, and by the way, I'm Joseph Kasser. And the outcome. I got a 6-page report. The overview, he tells me, this style guide captures the distinctive writing characteristics of Joseph Kasser based on analysis of his academic publications. Use this guide to emulate his analytical, systematic, and pedagogically oriented writing approach. I could use this guide to take an AI-generated paper and tell the AI to change the paper to emulate my analytical, systematic, and pedagogically oriented writing approach. Or I could be very unethical and have the AI write a paper and then say, use this guide to emulate somebody else's systematic and pedagogical oriented writing approach, and then publish that paper. Very unethical, but very possible. So it gave me reports on my core writing philosophy, structural patterns, voice and tone, language characteristics, specific writing techniques, citation and referencing style, common patterns and structured, distinctive vocabulary, quality standards, example sentence patterns, and application guidelines. And here's an example from structural patterns. Abstract always includes the practical problem, methodology, key findings and implications for practitioners. Introduction poses a provocative question that challenges conventional wisdom. Analysis framework introduces systemic analytical approach. Multi-perspective analysis examines the topic from multiple viewpoints systemically. Synthesis identifies patterns, paradigms, or fundamental issues. Practical solutions provides concrete guidance for practitioners and lists credentials emphasizing both academic and practical experience. And I didn't realize I was doing any of this. I just wrote the papers. I do realize that an abstract needs to provide a problem and a solution, because that is the advertisement or marketing for somebody to read the paper or attend the presentation. But I didn't realize I was doing the rest. The provocative approach, challenging conventional wisdom. It tells me, Kasser's warning, we may be offended, but the objective is to get us to think. Now that is a hallucination, because first of all, I never intended to offend anybody. And secondly, I never actually wrote that. My method: question established practices, challenge assumptions, expose ineffective approaches, encourage critical thinking, and focus on results over process compliance. The result is uncomfortable truths that lead to better outcomes. Yeah, but only if people read my work and adopt it. And it also listed my profile on ResearchGate and LinkedIn as sources. Podcasts and presentations. I used Notebook LM to create podcasts. I would feed it one or more PDF files, and optionally I would give it instructions, but most of the time I just said nothing and let it decide. It produces a briefing report with an executive summary, main themes and key insights, a study guide, a list of frequently asked questions, some questions and answers, examples, and a mind map, which is basically a list of headings, and a podcast. And here's an AI-created logo for my podcast. It also creates a video overview, and this is new. I gave it a paper that I'm in the process of writing, and it created a video summary of the manuscript. So it took a 20-page paper with 14 drawings and reduced it to 6 minutes and 39 seconds.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really powerful framework, something that could completely change the way you tackle complex problems. And I mean any complex problem, whether you're trying to fix a machine or manage an entire city. So, let's start with a feeling I think we've all had, right? You're staring down a huge, messy problem, and you just have no clue where to even start. It feels like you're completely stuck, maybe like you're trying to solve a puzzle but the lights are out. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What if the problem isn't actually the problem? What if the real issue is the way we've all been taught to think, that we're using these mental models that, without us even knowing it, are putting up these invisible walls? And these are the three big ones, the hidden barriers that really trip us up. You've got the system definition conundrum, the open versus closed system debate, and this reductionism paradox. Basically, we get caught up arguing about what words mean, we see choices that aren't really there, and we throw out perfectly good tools. But what if there was a way to just make all three of those barriers disappear? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. There is a single, super simple key that just slices right through all of that confusion. It's elegant, it's powerful, and honestly, it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
I cut it short because I'm time limited on the presentation. But in the podcast and the presentations using Notebook LM, it does make mistakes. It does misinterpret. It does give definitions for acronyms that it makes up on its own. So it needs to be checked. Now let's look at ethics. Always admit to using AI when you do. Not to blame the AI for the misinformation or disinformation, but it reminds you to verify the AI's information. It reminds you to verify the AI's information so you don't propagate the errors. And the second point is you have no idea who can access the information shared between you and the AI. So if you have any information that you don't want to share with anybody, do not use an online AI to process it. Because even if your information is protected along the link, you have no idea who can physically access the server and get at your information. Scams. I saw this advertisement on LinkedIn. AI Superbot Review. Superbot Review. Unlock every premium tool with one command. Looks really good, I thought. Okay, I clicked on the link. And I got this fantastic number of AIs, paid access to it, the product creator, product, launch date, pretty new, launch time, front-end price $17, one-time free, live access. And further down in the print was this 30-day money-back guarantee. Can't lose, right? I paid my $17 and accessed the file. And I got this menu of a number of AI tools. And you can see in the middle there, it says all tools, text writing tools, image generation, video generation, voice and audio, marketing, productivity, and so on. Well, I looked at ChatGPT 4 and I go, that's available. Okay, but aren't we in ChatGPT 5 right now? And Claude 3 is available. And aren't we in Claude 4, 4.5? And so I looked at the menu options and I see the AIs and it tells me what they're useful for. Really good. And then when I try and use them, I find I can't upload a file. I have to type everything in. So I go, wait a minute, that's not for me. So I requested a refund. They asked me why. I told them why. I said, I can't upload a text file to the AI, and so it's useless for my application, and I'm not interested in any of the other AIs at all. So that's why I want a refund. I didn't get a response. So after a couple of weeks, I mentioned I was doing this presentation. Immediately, they offered access to any product. I repeated my request for a refund. A couple of days later, they asked for details of the purchase. I provided the same. And then I got an email that the refund is being processed. At the time of creating this video, that's the status. Every time I logged into the site the first 3 days, I keep getting these marketing messages to update, update, update. Not interested in dealing with these people. And by the way, when I first bought an AI from the Human Pal people, it didn't meet my need. I requested a refund and I got it immediately. So I know who I'm buying AI from. Lessons learned. AI takes what it reads as truth, no critical thinking, but it does have a wide database. It's very good at apologizing. Lots of praise for my work. I gave it my first attempt and it says, hey, this is a landmark paper. It's going to really change the world. And I go, oh, okay. And after a while, I sort of realized it. I told the AI, stop brown-nosing me. And it goes, okay. It is very verbose. I can go through 2 iterations of please condense, remove duplication. But some of what it does is active listening, and that is good. When I'm giving it an instruction, what comes back is the way it interpreted my instruction. So it's my instruction coming back in its own language, which doesn't always give me the answer that I wanted. It makes suggestions. Some are helpful and some are not so helpful. It can save a lot of time, especially typing code time. When I ask it to write code, it gives me the code in half a minute that might have taken me a week to type in. But the instructions to the AI need to be specific. And it doesn't listen very well or is forgetful. I still haven't quite worked that out. And it seems to follow a process. You saw what happened with orbits. In short, trust what you get, but verify it. In summary, I went through a wide range of talking about search engines, textbooks, classroom use, tools, images, software marketing, reflection, podcasts, ethics, and so on. I hope you've been entertained and I hope you've learned something from this presentation. In conclusion, AI can improve productivity if used properly. AI can also waste your time. You can ask an AI to recommend the best AI for your problem. And you can use one AI to check information provided by another AI. And your use of AI is only limited by your imagination and your expertise. It's your imagination that gives you the question to ask and your expertise that checks for hallucinations. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I now hand the session back to the chairman.